You're listening to the Passion for the Paranormal podcast with Curry Stegan. Now with weekly episodes. Now sit back, relax, and free your mind and let Curry take you on a journey into the paranormal, the bizarre, and unexplained. And don't forget to subscribe to him on Apple or Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And now, here's your host, Curry Stegan.
Well, greetings, fellow truth seekers, and welcome to another episode of Passion for the Paranormal, bringing a passion for the paranormal to you. It's really good to be back here with you once again, and it's real good to welcome my next guest. He is a ufologist, a paranormal investigator, and an author, all rolled into one. And he is co-author of the book The Visitants, and his name is Tom Conwell. So really excited to welcome Tom to the show for the first time. In my new book, Walking in the Shadows of Strangers, I talk about some really cool ghost stories that have been shared with me over the years. And more importantly, I cover my experiences as a paranormal investigator at over 20 haunted locations. And some really, really cool experiences I've had in close to 10 years of investigating at these locations. So hope you'll check out the book at passion, the number 4, theparanormal.com. There you can find a link to order the book. You can also find it on Amazon, and you can order paperback. You can also order the Kindle version. If you have a Kindle Unlimited account, you can get the book for free. So hopefully you check out the book. And if you have a friend or family member you think that would like to check out the show, simply let them know about it. Share a link with them. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, go to the website and fill out the questionnaire there, or you can even email me at passion, the number 4, thepara.com at gmail.com. All right, so real eager to talk with Tom and get into his experiences, not only with UFOs and UFO sightings and his experiences as a paranormal investigator. I also want to get into talking about this new book. It sounds really interesting. So I really hope you enjoy tonight's show. And don't miss the next show when I'll have Simon Bown on. And he is a certified hypnotherapist. He does past life regressions. And he is also the host of the popular podcast, the Past Lives podcast. And so don't miss that show. Should be a great one as well. And without further ado, I'm going to get into this discussion with Tom. And thank you so much for tuning into the show. Okay, so joining me today is ufologist Thomas Conwell. Tom has been an electronic technician with the US Navy and Honeywell for 42 years, a Honeywell Temperature Control, fire alarm and software security specialist, Biomedical Engineer, Meteorologist and HVAC Engineering resource. He has far-ranging experience with a keen awareness of physics, computer, and internet software, and a broad knowledge of electronics and how it intersects with the paranormal world and UFOs. He is also co-author of the book, The Night Visitants, a ufologist, an experiencer, and the Undefinable. Tom studies databases as a forensic pattern researcher, and over the past 3 years, he has written 3 volumes of a book series, They Are Here, self-published a collection of blogs, and has studied and researched UFO sightings across the United States and given speeches about these subjects. Tom has assembled a map of UFO sightings, which has revealed many anomalies and is now an integral part of his research studies. Tom, thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely, and sounds like you've done some real interesting research here and delving into these UFO sightings and cases. I want to get into the new book as well and how that kind of came about. But true to form, I always want to hear a little bit of the backstory. How did this journey begin for you? Just kind of a shortened version of how this journey began, because I know sometimes it's a long story for some people. how it kind of started for you and how you got into researching anomalous activity and UFOs and all that good stuff.
Okay. Well, let me take you back. And again, I'll be really brief. Let me take you back to when I was a teenager. Believe me, that was a lot of years ago. My aunt was the secretary of the Astronomical League of America, and she took me with her to conferences, and we had lots of fun. And I got an opportunity to meet all of the people in the field at that time in astronomy. It was great, but I've always had an interest in the cosmos. Then life got in the way. I joined the Navy, um, and then went into Honeywell and had lots of years with Honeywell, 36 years with Honeywell. And then I retired. When I retired, I was looking for something to do, and I had gotten interested in UFO shows, always had been really the whole time, and in paranormal shows. So I joined a paranormal group, and of course they loved to have me because of my background in electronics, and they they also realizing that I was interested in UFOs, they said, "Well, let's study UFOs too." And I went, "Sure, pick me. I'm the guy you want. I've been interested in this all my life." So, so they did, and one of the very first things I did was to write a series of blogs, not about how UFOs do what they do so much as to what we would need to do as people of Earth in order to solve the problem so that we could do what they're doing. And that was that was oh, about 10 years ago, I guess. And shortly after that, well, maybe a couple years after that, I realized what I had with all of these blogs that I had written. I had a full blown book, and this happened to be my fourth book, and I entitled it "Going Interstellar." So that's my thing about UFOs. My first three books were um, about the databases concerning the National UFO Reporting Center and what they may be revealing to us, and that hasn't been revealed to anyone else.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask, was any of this, so you obviously had some interest in the UFO subject for years. Any of your own personal experiences that also drew you into this, or was just a general interest in the subject?
Well, it was a general interest in the subject. I had to that point, to the point that I had retired, I had yet to see a ghost, a UFO, or anything like it. Nothing. Saw nothing. And as a matter of fact, I was always interested in what people said they were seeing because I never had. So therein comes the background information for this for the latest book, the Night Visitants. I got all kinds of interaction from I don't know what, and they certainly assisted me along the way in getting the books together and in doing the research that I was doing, and getting me to think in a certain way. I don't know if you want to get into the book, but I can give you a couple of examples about that when you get a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. So your book series was titled "They Are Here,"
Hmm.
and when you say they assisted you now, well, before I ask that question, let me back up for a second. Were you a little bit skeptical of UFO sightings and the subject of itself, or were you pretty much sold that there was something real to this before you ever had any experiences?
Well, I was fairly well informed about the whole UFO subject. I had read most books I could get my hands on, and of course, seeing UFO shows on TV, everything's a UFO to these guys. So yes and no. I had some basic preconceived notions, but I also thought that maybe the UFO field could use somebody who was slightly skeptical and looked at things much more technically.
Right. Yeah. I think a healthy, dose of skepticism is good in a lot of ways. I started as a skeptic in the paranormal and getting involved in it just because I was trying to kind of determine for myself if there was anything to it.
Sure.
Maybe you kind of had somewhat of a similar journey because it sounds like, you came from a technical background and it just kind of makes sense that someone with your background is going to, with a technical background and doing what you've done in your career, that you are going to question things and be a bit skeptical of things, and I think that's perfectly fine and healthy. You again, you titled the book series, the three books you did. They are here. They being is that assuming we're talking about extraterrestrial, and are we talking about from your perspective, perhaps being among us or just visiting us?
Well, both. Um, they, meaning um, whether they're extraterrestrials, extra-dimensionals, or or time travelers, I had no idea. But they were certainly around. And here, meaning either here within our dimension with us, or within a parallel dimension alongside of us. But I knew that something was going on. So that's where I stood with that.
The possibilities here, it gets interesting, especially as you start getting into looking at quantum physics and how that kind of opens up possibilities as well. Perhaps something being interdimensional, extra dimensional, whatever the terminology you want to use there. And I think it certainly opens up possibilities here. But you mentioned getting involved in the paranormal group. So once you got involved in the paranormal group, talk about some experiences you started to have there.
Okay. One of the experiences I had is I showed up early to a site. I was waiting for the group, and myself and my son just showed up, and we walked up and just chatted with a lady, and she was talking about something to her daughter who was sitting behind her, and she said, "Look, there's nobody around. Go on upstairs and get me such and such." I don't recall what she asked for. And I said, "Well, that guy's still in the building." And she said, "Tom, there's nobody in the building." I said, "Well, then who's that?" And just then this guy just disappeared. So that was my first one. That was interesting because he was solid. I mean, I couldn't see through him, nothing. He was a solid being, and he was carrying a tool case, a toolbox, and by box I mean it was made out of wood. You don't see those very often, and I thought that was kind of interesting. And then at a later event, myself and the team psychic were doing an investigation up in the attic of a place that was formerly run by the Shakers, which is a form of the Quakers. And we were just standing there asking questions. And I was standing probably about 20 feet from him. And right in between us, he said, "Tom, are you seeing this? There's something between you and me." And I don't know where I was looking. So I just glanced over toward him, and it was something sort of, I don't know, blurry that was there. It was almost like something that was the size of, uh, those plastic beach balls that you blow up. Okay, it was the size of that. And on the inside of this thing, it almost looked like, well, you've seen a lava lamp. On the inside of this thing, it almost looked like these black swirls, like there was a lava lamp going on inside. Very unusual. And we asked a bunch of questions, and this thing appeared in front of us, like I said, and it was there for is 6 minutes and 5 seconds, according to the recording we had made. That was really interesting, let me tell you. And it was based on a seance that this particular psychic and someone else in the group had earlier, and they had um, thought they had seen and heard information from a person who committed a murder many years ago, and he was stuck here on this plane along with the two people that he killed. Well, that was the information they got out of the seance. Of course, I have no idea how they got that, but they said that. And then later on, he jumped right into it and thought that what he was seeing was three souls sort of stuck together in this ball of energy. And like I said, we talked to them for approximately 6 minutes and 5 seconds. And then we heard the walkie talkie go off, calling us back into another meeting. And just then, this ball of energy just sort of faded away and disappeared. Those are the two things that I had seen that were just danged unusual. That's the only way I can say it. They were just really over the top.
Yeah, so it sounds like so this was early on,
Yeah.
you getting involved in the group, is that correct?
Yes, very early on, very shortly, within a year after I retired, which is 2009.
Yeah, so Tom, you kind of seen what some of us would consider the holy grail of doing the paranormal, and that is, it sounds like you saw a full body apparition right away.
Yep.
Uh, Something I haven't seen in 10 years of doing paranormal investigating. So that's amazing. I've had so many experiences throughout the years. It's just one, and I've had other people that I've worked with in the group I've been working with for several years who have saw that. But that's amazing to have that kind of experience early on, and then this figure you were just talking about, or ball of energy, it sounds like it was kind of translucent. Is that
Yeah,
fair to
yeah,
say?
that's a good word for it.
And did you get any corresponding, did you say any audio or anything like that when you saw this figure?
I got nothing. There was nothing on the recorder. And the only thing we used the recorder for, because there was nothing there, is when we called, or when my attention was called to this ball standing there, and when the walkie talkies went off, when the ball disappeared. So 6 minutes.
Wow, that's pretty remarkable. You had talked about after getting involved in the paranormal group as well as you kind of, I almost, if I understood you right, kind of like you were being led by whoever they are. Talk about that experience and how that kind of unfolded.
Okay. Let me give you one of the things that were highlighted within the book, and there's a total of 15 of them. There's one particular event, actually, it ends up being two because they were related. Um, I woke up in the middle of the night. It was usually when I'm awakened, it's usually right around 3. So it was probably around that time. I woke up in the middle of the night laying on my back, which I normally sleep on, and I saw two men in the room. And these men were, I was struggling trying to understand what I was seeing. And these two men were Native American Indians. That's what they look like. Plains Indians. Exactly like if you Googled Plains Indians, that's what I was seeing. And I'm thinking, what in the world are they doing in my room? Now, they had just come through a door on the right hand side of where I was laying. Right. I'm going to say that and I'm going to come back to it later. So these people walked up to me. Now, I sleep in a queen size bed. and my wife was off to my right, not in the bed. She has some back problems, so she was laying in the recliner, and about maybe 10 feet from me, perhaps that much. And these two men came up to me, one on either side of me. Remember, I'm laying in a queen size bed. I don't know how he got to the one side of me. I was really confused about what was happening. Well, they had two things they each had one thing in their hand, and they reached down and touched me in the chest. And I felt this jolt of electricity and found myself levitating. And it was like a snap of the fingers, and I woke up in my bed. And the first thing I did is I look around, and the door wasn't on the right side. The door was where it should have been, on the left side of it. And I looked over, and there was my clock on the left hand side. So I'm thinking, all right, I'm in my room, but where was I? Really had no idea. So shortly thereafter, I woke up. I think it was probably within a day or so. I woke up in the morning again, and I had been searching for CE5, which was the protocol that gets a group of people together and heavily meditates and attempts to call ships into their meditation group so they can see them. All right. And I was wondering how I was going to get involved with a group like this because there was nothing really close to me. There was some several hours away, but I was going to have to do some research to try to get in with them. And then this voice popped into my head, and this voice wasn't me thinking. It was somebody else's voice, and they talked to me in not a different language, but in a way that I couldn't really identify with yet. They said to me, "Groups not necessary. Ask." Well, that's not the way I talk, either to anyone else or to myself. Believe me, I'm very wordy, and that's how I think, and whatever else. And I wouldn't think things like that. Groups not necessary. Ask. What does that mean? So I remember sort of falling back to sleep, and I woke up later, and that voice was still prominent in my head. So all I could think of was, gee, I was thinking about CE5. So maybe I don't need a CE5 group. Maybe all I have to do is ask. So I started asking. Of course, the UFO deals didn't start happening right away. Um, I was starting to write my first book, which was They Are Here, Volume One. And I got pretty much mostly through it. I was experimenting with uploading to Amazon and a whole bunch of other things I was looking into, and I saw aircraft out the window of my front room, and as a matter of fact, my wife saw them and called my attention to them, and I saw the craft out there and watched them for a while and made note of what I was seeing. And it turns out the next day I was about to upload my final copy to Amazon. So I included that within the final copy and shipped the thing up to Amazon. And I thought that was probably going to be the end of it. So I started writing my second book and got well on my way. Discovered a whole bunch of stuff about Native Americans and met a few people along the way who were raised as yes, strictly Native Americans. They had a bunch of stories to tell me. I thought it was just absolutely fascinating. And I was ready to load my second book, and whammo, there was another UFO in the sky. I wasn't, I didn't look up to see it. Somebody or something said, look up. So I looked up and there it was. So that was item number two. And so then I was I wrote that that what I saw into volume two in the very beginning, just like one, and I uploaded it to Amazon, which was probably within a week, and started writing volume three. Well, that took me a little bit longer. I completed volume three, and that was it. Yeah, it was the same morning. I had agreed to go back to work to help the guys out doing a large project. So I went. I was heading back to work, and this, I don't know. It looked like a sphere, but it was tiny. It was small, but extremely bright. And this thing came charging at my car and almost hit the windshield. And it actually may have, and skipped off the windshield and went up and out and disappeared. What the hell was that? You know, I had never seen anything even remotely like that. And that was the day before I was going to upload my third book in. So book one, book two, book three. After I asked to see something, they gave me meaning I don't know who they were, but gave me a sighting that I could put into the book for each one of the volumes that I wrote. I just thought that was just very, very interesting.
Yeah, that's intriguing, and how these sightings coincided with the completion of the book and completing your books and uploading them. Uh, Now, Tom, do these types of experiences continue today? Are they still going on?
Yes and no. Now, they started approximately, let's see, when did they start? Approximately 2010, maybe early 2011, which is when I first got involved with UFOs. And they went almost to the present, um, but they didn't happen in rapid succession. Some of them happened a year from each other. Some were 6 months, but there was a certain amount of time in between each one. So um, I think they're still happening today, as I get the impression some mornings I wake up that I've been in a had to sit in a 10-hour lecture somewhere. Just very strange.
Yeah, that kind of begs the question: is there some sort of some might even call abduction type phenomena going on here? Any types of missing time experience or anything like that?
Nothing that I'm aware of. Anything that happened to me, I was asleep or sleeping or in a sleep state. So I don't know if there was missing time. Nothing ever happened to me while I was awake and walking around and then, found myself somewhere else. That never happened.
And let's get into the new book a little bit. So you've co-authored this book, and how did the book come about? How did you end up working with Anna, your co-author on this book, and talk about how this came together?
Okay. Um, Approximately last October, we, Anna and I were talking. We've been friends on Facebook for years, and I posted some of the things um, that happened to me, two of the things that I had already talked about. I posted some of those things on Facebook, and of course, when I posted that, the comments came out of the woodwork from all over the place. And she was real interested in this and wanted to know more, wanted to know if I'm having any others. And I said, I'm having so many that I don't even know where to start. And that's what gave her the idea that, maybe this would be a good memoir to write. So that's where we started. She started interviewing me, and we we talked over and over and over again. And not only that, in order to drive home some of the things that had happened to me and some of the experiences I had, what we did was, or excuse me, what I did was recommend that she talk to one of the people that contacted me to tell me their story of abductions. So Anna spoke with this girl. Her name is her name in the book. It's she doesn't want to be known, but her name in the book is Shailene, and she was interviewed at length too, and her story and my story interweave with each other throughout the course of the book, and it really is interesting how this worked out.
So now, did your co-author Anna? Did she have some of her own experiences as well, or what compelled her to write your story and in this book?
Wow, that's a good question. Um, she had experiences in the paranormal from the time she was a little kid, and as a matter of fact, her father had a very significant experience, which led to his demise, unfortunately. But um, she had some very, very strong experiences and was aware of the paranormal, and was also aware of UFOs and what they may or may not be able to generate, because she was a UFO investigator with MUFON
Oh well,
for
okay.
a while, and um, she had quite a few sessions where she did investigations. So she came into this with a pretty significant background. And when I said something that was outrageous, um, which I did more than once, um, she questioned me about it and asked me where it came from and well, all this other stuff. So she really thoroughly, when it was over, she thoroughly understood where I was coming from. That's what made this book so good. I mean, this is a dandy, Colonel. This is a real good book. Matter of fact, I tell people, do not read this book at home, alone, and at night, because it is rough.
You know what? I wanted to. So you refer to the character Shaylee in the book. It sounds like it covers her story pretty extensively.
Yep.
Uh, Talk about her story a little bit. I think it sounds like this is dealing with abductions. Talk a little bit about what made you so interested in her story and really drew you in on this.
Okay. With her, we had many, many discussions about what was going on with her. And she didn't really get into things with me until I more or less proved that I wasn't going to blab my story to everybody. To this day, I have held back on a rather significant portion of this story because I find it to be extremely personal. It's up to her to tell. Um, However, she came to me wanting to tell me her story. And I heard all about the most recent portions of her story, which um, were involving being taken out of her house with her children there, and her children being taken, and it was some really significant events, and where she had also met, interfaced, whatever the terminology is, with um, multiple multiple groups of beings, and she thought that for the longest time that she was being looked at because of her involvement with a Native American group that she was raised with. So it's a very interesting story, and I didn't know a little portion of this story that happened to her before she started talking to me. And this area before related to the fact that she was a shaman and very attuned to the paranormal. And she had lots of different experiences in her home when she was a youngster. It was pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah, see, that's where this stuff really starts to fascinate me. Is it seems that people who have these kind of, if you want to call them extrasensory abilities, psychic abilities, those sorts of things, they tend to have they tend to be the people that have more of these interfaces or interactions with perhaps something, whether it's interdimensional, extraterrestrial, or whatnot. Is that kind of what you found as well in your
It's right.
research?
It's exactly what I found. When I first started interviewing people, I kept a spreadsheet of what kind of experiences people had, and also what kinds of things that they had always thought about themselves from early on, and what other people thought about them. And I put that in a big spreadsheet. And when I looked at it, it was obvious that every single person who was abducted was also uh, considered psychic by either themselves, their close friends, or their family.
Yeah, no, the other thing I found interesting, Tom, is people who've had, say, near death experiences,
Mhm.
out of body type experiences, they seem to, or people who've had abduction experiences, seem to now be opened up to other types of phenomena. It's kind of like it opens up a doorway or something. Uh,
Absolutely does. It absolutely. And I figured that when I walked into what I walked into on the two separate events when I was doing paranormal investigating, that got me going. And then when I started interviewing people who were abducted, um, that really that really lit the fire. And then Shailene threw me over the edge. Some of the things that are happening now are I can't even put into words.
now, if you can say, Tom, as you started going into her story, did you find out that any other? I know you mentioned the children seem to have also had experiences. Any other family members, parents, anything like that, who had experienced being abducted or anything similar?
In my family,
No, we'll just say Shay Lee,
oh
as is
yes,
mentioned in the book.
yeah.
Any other family experiences?
Yeah, her mother would never talk about anything. She said, "You must not talk about this." Well, that goes back to my parents who never would talk about it either. However, my mom always thought that she had a sixth sense about things, and my brothers and sisters never mentioned that, but I think that 3 out of 5 of them are firm believers. So no one has ever said that they were abducted. I haven't heard that yet from anyone in my family. And it was just very interesting that they're all very aware of of the paranormal and believe in everything that could be possible.
Yeah, and about Shaylee, any of her family had experiences that you know
Oh,
of?
you betcha. Um, Her parents, mother, and I'm not so sure about her father. Her mother for certain. Um, her sisters, two sisters and a brother, were aware of everything that was going on with her, and I believe that they probably didn't know how to communicate that with Shailene. That's what I'm guessing. And when Shailene was married and had several kids, her kids were actually taken, and she was aware that they were taken when she was.
Interesting stuff. So she was having these abduction experiences.
Okay.
My question is, did she get into details about some of the interactions or activity that were taking place during these abductions?
Yes. Not only that, she um, she told Anna, who co-wrote the book here, about some of those, and some of those are in the book. However, she did talk about waking up one time and actually forcing herself awake and sitting up in on a table and being face to face with the short gray aliens, and they were surprised. She said that what happened was immediately afterward, she found herself in her bedroom, hovering above her bed, hovering above, like up near the ceiling, and then all of a sudden released, and whammo, down she went on the bed, and that's how she became aware of what was going on.
Interesting. And you said that she had reported having experiences with multiple different groups.
Yes.
Okay, so gray aliens, any other types of beings that she mentioned specifically?
Yes, she mentioned a tall alien that looked very similar to the short grays, and she also mentioned a mantis being that looked like he or she was carrying around a tablet or a clipboard or who knows what they carry, but it looked like he or she was in charge of the events that were occurring there.
Yeah, and was she given any sort of reasons for these interactions? Why they were taking her? Sometimes you'll get abductees who get messages about humanity and direction. Anything like that conveyed to her?
Yeah, she told me a couple of things, and she bound me to secrecy. I can't say what they were, unfortunately, but she was given some sightings about people burning in buildings and things like this while she was on a ship, and they put those thoughts in her mind. I don't know if it was to hide something, but what she told me was something that related directly to what is going on now outside the planet. And it seemed to be something along the lines of good versus evil, whatever that means. I have no idea what it means.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am always, interested and fascinated in all the kind of the nexus or connection between all unexplained phenomena, whether it be paranormal or UFOs, near-death experiences, all this kind of stuff. Your paranormal experiences, doing paranormal investigating, it seems like, or it sounds like, if I understood you right, you seem to think that perhaps this ties in with the mention of the beans that were in your room, and what's kind of your thoughts on how this stuff may be related?
Oh, okay. Because I've always believed that in order for them to travel such huge distances, they have to access other dimensions that where maybe time distance may not be as apparent as it is here. And if they do that, they can pop out somewhere else uh, over a great deal of time within our timeline, but a very short time in their travels. Um, and I always thought that once they go into these other dimensions or disappear while we're looking up right at their ships, whatever the deal is, it has a direct correlation to where ghosts are going. I'm not saying they're ghosts, and I'm not saying that anything else is directly related. I'm just saying they're very similar. And when when they started coming here in large groups, I believe that what they did with their ships is they created what's a turbulence, a wave, whatever that increased the paranormal uh, reactions, increased the paranormal interactions between actual ghosts and people on the earth. Hope
Yeah.
I said that right.
Yeah, that's interesting. It does make you wonder. We start to get this wave of sightings of UFOs. It seems, starting with Kenneth Arnold sightings and then going into Roswell and beyond. And some people tie that into things Aleister Crowley and Jack Parsons were doing. Some people tie that into the our nuclear ambitions and developments in nuclear weapons, but it certainly begs the question, why did they start showing up in mass during that time frame?
Wow, great question. It's another one of my favorite subjects. I believe that there's multiple things at play. I think number one, they were aware of where we were in our spiritual development, if you will, and they knew that we were about to take rather large strides in our own spiritual development, being aware of of upper dimensionality, being aware of vibration, and people utilizing these things in order to either astral travel or whatever the deal happens to be about. It's very hard to put this into words, but anyhow, um, they, meaning the visitors, were aware of our changes, and they also knew that we were doing the nuclear thing, and we could very well, if things got out of hand, we could very well just ruin our entire planet, and that bothered them greatly. And they, I think, in their own way, I don't know what those ways were, but I think in their own way, they started to intervene.
Yeah, it certainly makes you wonder whether that is the case with all the mass sightings that started happening during those time frames. And 47 on, so many reported UFO cases seem to start happening during that time frame. That's just interesting because there's different theories out there about why it started up so strong. A lot of people believe it's been going on for thousands of years, that perhaps, if not even longer on this earth, but it does seem
I think
interesting.
so too. Uh, and I think they've been here for almost forever. But there was just a small contingent here, and when they realized that we had reached the trip point, that's when they called for help, and that's when the ships came.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to get into, in your bio, it talks about you doing, you know, researching and collecting data on sightings across the United States.
Hmm.
And I know you've talked about and given speeches about this. What kind of interesting things did you come up with, as a result of all this research, researching these sightings, maybe some things that kind of came out or were glaring as a result to you as a result of this research that you did?
Okay. Glaring, definitely there's a few of them. Number one, it's the presence of fireballs. Fireballs um, can be called spheres that look like they're on fire, like there's a fire all around them. Very odd. And I believe they could be a how would I tell a digital fire. In other words, it's a fire looking thing that we're seeing from the ground, and it's used to cover up whatever it is that they are. Okay, so these things are being seen in and around the water most often. I think that they are using this fire as a cover, and the ships are coming up out of the water and doing whatever they're going to do over top of our land, going back and forth, looking at us, judging our level of advancement, whatever it is that they're doing, and uh, that's probably the first thing. In and around the water, in other words, all up and down the east coast, across the Gulf of Mexico, up the Pacific uh, side of the country, all the way up into Alaska. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing that I noticed is that there is fewer of the fireballs seen in certain areas, such as in Western North Carolina. Now, Western North Carolina is very mountainous, heavily mountainous. Not like the Rockies, but it's very mountainous. And um, there's been a lot of discussion there that this area is hiding underground bases, or an underground base, whatever the deal is. And it doesn't stop with just that. There's areas around northwestern Arkansas in the uh, in the Ozark Mountains generally, um, where there's some very unusual things that have happened. There were a lot of UFO sightings in and around some of the nuclear launch sites for the intercontinental missiles, and that was in those mountains many years ago. And then we find areas right alongside Denver, north and south, right up against the Rocky Mountains. That's another very strong area. Another strong area is up in Washington State. And there's a lot of sightings in and around the Columbia River. As the Columbia River gets developed and goes down south in Washington towards Oregon, and then curves west and sort of paints the northern border of Oregon. There's a whole lot of things seen in and around there. In addition to, there's some Native American sites there that where there's a lot of stories about interfacing. And then, of course, we have California, which is the number one state for sightings, and that place is absolutely nuts with sightings. There's so many there; it's unbelievable. And I think it's because there's a combination of things. I think there's an underwater base there. I believe that there is bases in and around the mountains, or at least close by, that they could go from one to the other. If not, be able to travel from one to the other underneath the ground. I'm not sure yet. And in addition to sightings off of the coast of California, um, which was some of the videos released by the Navy showed those interfaces with the F-16s and some of the things that were seen in the sky. And then we have Florida, which is there's so many sightings there. It's just almost hard to believe. If there were as many people in Florida as there were in California, they'd have equal amount of sightings. That's the way I look at it. But Florida is loaded, and a whole lot of the sighting reports talk about um, UFOs flying out from the ocean side up over the land and back out again, back out over the Gulf of Mexico. So those are the main ones there, in addition to having all kinds of little ones in and around the states.
Sure. Yeah, that's certain areas where large bodies of water are certainly seems to be locations where there's a lot of sightings for sure. Hey, Tom, we're a little bit short on time now.
Sure.
Where can people? The book is already out, is that right? Or is it?
Yes, it is. It
Okay.
is, and it's on sale on Amazon for $5.99 in Kindle. It is on sale in book form at $16.99, and you can contact me through the best place is Facebook. Um, my address on Facebook is tom.conwell.3. That's my Facebook address. And everything I post on there, and I'm posting regularly about UFOs, but everything I post on there is public, so anyone can see it, whether you're a friend or not.
Okay. Great. All right. Well, hey, thank you so much for spending the time with me, Tom. It's been fascinating. Great discussion. And so, once again, the book is The Night Visitants, a ufologist, an experiencer, and the undefinable. So, again, available on Amazon. Anywhere else the book's available other than Amazon, Tom?
Nowhere that I'm aware of. It just came out, and we're trying to get into various bookstores, and you're going to find it in libraries too.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, hey, Tom, great work, and best of luck to you. And books. I hope it continues to do well, and have a great what's left of the rest of your day. And once again, thank you so much for joining me on the show.